Hey guys, how's it going? So, I want to just today talk about the balance of a lot of characters and why your favorite character might not be receiving a buff. I want to focus on ML5's just because I think it makes it a lot simpler, but this really applies to most characters in the game overall. So, something that I hear a lot is like X or Y characters should be buffed. And you know what? A lot of characters should be buffed. There's a lot of characters that are not that great and the meta's kind of stale, etc. So it makes sense, especially if it's a character that you really like. Like, let's say you're a huge fan of Twisted Eidolon Kayron. A lot of people think he's terrible, he has almost no uses, he takes too long, he's a bad landy, etc. The list goes on. But the thing is, how do you buff this guy without making him the most annoying character ever? You have a character that puts the opponent on a timer. Basically, when he gets this skill, they're probably just about dead. He counters every single time that he attacks, which is pretty insane because you put that on lifesteal and you give him a bunch of bulk and like, wow, every time you hit him, he's healing a crazy amount in AoE. That's pretty scary. And you'll hear people be like, oh, they should get this buff and this buff and this buff. And you gotta think about, like, you gotta temper your expectations, right? Some of these characters, if you buff them even a little bit, they can be out of control. Do you guys remember some of the buffs that they've given characters in the past? Like, you guys remember Apocalypse Ravi? They gave her a little buff, and people were like, that's not good enough. That's just not good enough. And then they're like, okay, fine. Let's buff Apocalypse Ravi. Let's give her injury and extra damage on this and push up. And then people were like, wait, stop. No. And then for the next, I don't know, 2 years, people were like, Apocalypse Ravi is broken. Nerf this character, right? Now, obviously, that might be a little bit overboard, but I see people always ask for kind of outrageous changes to characters, and they want characters buffed that might be incredibly toxic to the game. I remember ML Ken, early on in the game, he was the most broken character in Epic 7. He was the best character, he killed everything. But now the game has evolved to a state where obviously he sucks, he's really bad now, right? But I'll hear people say stuff like, oh, he just maybe shouldn't be affected by debuffs, or like he should be able to counter uncounterable attacks and stuff. And okay, maybe they have some merit to them, but can you imagine if ML Ken was ever good? Here's the thing, it's fine if this character is like okay, like at best, but imagine if he's good, like a really good character, and you see this guy all the time. Can you imagine how frustrating it is to fight a character that you feel helpless against, where if you attack him, you just die? It's the same with Kayron, right? They're both similar characters where it's just an incredibly frustrating playstyle to fight against, and would probably be one of the most annoying things you could ever possibly fight in the game. I hear people ask for Spez buffs, right? Specimen Sez is a character that instantly one-shots you under this condition. And I've heard people say stuff like they should give him the Euphane treatment, and what they did with Euphane is when an enemy gets silenced, she pushes up and then she can almost one-shot them, right? Well, can you imagine if Specimen Sez had that? If you stun the opponent at all, he pushes up, instantly kills them from full health because his damage is the highest in the entire game, and then he Wind Rider stealths. What the hell are you going to do to that guy, right? Think about how annoying that would be. What I'm saying is that it's so easy to tip the scales on a lot of these characters, where some of them have skill sets that right now are really bad, but they could easily become so oppressive and frustrating with buffs. They could become so annoying to fight. Eye Celine is another character. Now, they gave her a buff recently, and I think it was actually a really well-designed buff because they made it so this goes up to 100%. Thank God, it was so annoying before. And they made it so that she heals a little bit more on lifesteal, or without lifesteal, rather. That's great. But people are always asking for more. If you make this character not a niche character, not someone that, like, you know, you can only pick in certain circumstances, but you can pick her all the time, think about how frustrating that would be. It'd be so incredibly annoying to fight a character that revives their whole team and is almost impossible to kill and counterattacks every hit and heals a bunch. Now, you know, she needed buffs 100%, and maybe she could use even a little more touch-up based on how her win rate's going and how her play rate's going. Maybe she could use a little bit more. But what I'm trying to say is that be really careful and be careful what you wish for, right? A lot of these characters are so easy to just make them become completely insane. I hear people asking for buffs for Arbiter Vildred. You guys remember the first 2 years of the game, basically, where Arbiter Vildred was in every single game, and if you didn't have a direct counter to him, you just died and he would kill your whole team, and he was in every single match of RTA, every single arena defense, every single guild war team. Do we really want a buff for this guy? He's a guy who does a ton of damage, doesn't care about his own safety, and then revives and does a ton more damage. Do we really want this guy to actually be a good character? I mean, you might be a huge Arbiter Vildred lover and you say absolutely yes, but I'm just speaking a little more objectively here. Like, is that really good for the game? You know, the Japan launch of Epic 7 had a catastrophic failure overall, and I would say a big part of it was Arbiter Vildred, actually. Because when it came out over there, you could re-roll for Arbiter Vildred off of Covenants, which you couldn't do when Epic 7 first launched. And so if you had Arbiter Vildred, you were just a god in that version. This was before the Moonlight Selector and all that kind of stuff was out. And so he kind of just would kill everything. And guess what? In the Japan server, they had almost no counters to the guy, so he just instantly wiped everybody. Now imagine if this guy got a buff in our server. I don't know what it would be, like maybe more damage or something like that. Like, how do you buff this guy without making him go insane? But then how does it complement his skill set? Do you give him utility? I'm not really sure, but I think a lot of people asking for buffs for Arvi, it's like, are you sure you really want that though, right? Roana, here's another character. Now, most people think that she's terrible. I think she's not that great. I haven't really seen much evidence to say otherwise. Some people are starting to come around, and they're saying that they think she's pretty good. She's a huge whale unit, possibly. I haven't really seen too much evidence, but at the moment I'm kind of like, I don't think this character is great. And at least for the most part, I think most people shouldn't get this unit. Like, she's not that useful. But can you imagine if they buffed her? So people want her to be buffed. Okay, that's understandable if she's not that great. But how are they going to buff her? How are they going to buff this character to make them balanced? Did they just give her like 1 billion damage? Is that how they buff the character? Did they make it so that this move actually strips their buffs first? Because think about how insanely powerful that would be if it strips first. Then you just run like Zeo or whatever fast unit. It doesn't matter if the opponent has immunity or whatever, strips their buffs, and then increases their cooldown. That's basically another Lua, but with some extra true damage. And I don't know, if you draft Lua and her, I guess the opponent's never going to use skills ever again or something. And if you increase the damage a bunch, well, think about Last Rider Crow. He's pretty insane. Can you imagine running her and Last Rider Crow in like a cleave team? And you just do like 16,000 defense true like pierce defense true damage to the opponent? Okay, that's a little bit much, isn't it? And resetting their cooldowns. So you have to be really careful about these characters. They're so easy to go overboard. I would love for a lot of these characters to be buffed. Believe me, I'm 100% annoyed by so many of these balance updates they do where they're like, oh, we're buffing one character. We're giving Little Queen Charlotte an extra 20% damage to dark units on her S3. Okay, cool. That's like the most boring change I've ever seen. It probably took you all of 2 seconds to come up with that. Thank you for taking 2 months to give us changes like that, right? But, I mean, LQC, hey, hard pill to swallow. She's actually totally fine. She's a pretty damn decent unit. I see a lot of the reviews people talking about. They have no idea what they're saying, and they have the worst builds I've ever seen. And the character is totally fine. A lot of people want buffs for characters that are actually totally okay. But I'm not trying to focus on those. It's more on the characters that are underperforming or not that great that people want buffs for. Just be really careful about some of these because it's so easy to go overboard. Now, there's some characters that I would say in the game right now need some changes, and I think they could do it without them going overboard. So like Judge Kisei, I mean, she's pretty bad, and I don't think that it would really work all that great to just buff her damage or something. I don't think that's really all that amazing. You got characters like Blood Moon Haste. This guy's horrible. When's the last time you've seen this guy? Most people forgot this guy even exists, right? There's definitely characters that I think that they can balance without making them too crazy. But then you look at Silverblade Aramintha. How are you going to balance this character? Make her S3 strip before it does the stun? That's kind of crazy, right? Imagine if it just stripped all buffs. I don't know, do you make her damage just like doubled so it's like actually huge and you can make her a bruiser? I'm not sure, but obviously a lot of these characters need buffs, but at the same time, how do you buff them without making them broken? I mean, it's not my job, it's not your job, it's Smilegate's job, right? They're the ones that have to come up with it. And well, they take 2 months to buff like 6 characters and only one or two of the characters ever make a difference. Kind of lame. Look at Last Rider Crow, Ambitious Tywin. The moment they were buffed recently, top tier units. Ambitious Tywin completely took over the meta after he got buffed, being used as like a premier tank. But now you see him less because they buffed Last Rider Crow, and now this guy is in every single game, right? So the buffs are so easy to make them more than just a decent character and into like stardom or sometimes completely broken, which nobody wants to see, or a character like Apocalypse Ravi, right? So all I'm saying is temper your expectations, and I don't know, I thought this would be an interesting thing to talk about because I always see people talk about this character should be buffed, this character should be buffed, or like ML5's, Silverblade Aramintha, right? And yeah, they should get buffed, but also maybe they should get reworked instead. Possibly a rework would be much better for the game, rather than just buffing them. But the thing is Smilegate going to do that? A rework probably takes so much more time, so much more effort, and it's a real pain to see because I would love to see some of these characters get reworked. Like Judge Kisei, I have her skin, I love this skin, it looks amazing, right? But if they just buff her, she's either going to be a character that does like 1 billion damage with this skill or something, or she's going to be a character that sucks. And it feels like there's not really any in between for a lot of them. So that's all I really wanted to talk about, is just, that's probably why we see a lot of these characters never getting buffed. And I just thought I would kind of talk about that because I see so many people asking for buffs for a lot of these old characters, but the old characters' skill sets are just so cut and dry. They're either going to be trash or they're going to be OP, most likely. Anyways, thanks a bunch for watching. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.